I never thought I'd cry in a bathroom stall on my birthday. But there I was, cheeks burning, mascara streaked down my face, fists clenched around the hem of my lilac dress as laughter echoed from outside the door. Not just any laughter. Her laughter. Madison's. My so-called best friend. It started as a joke. A silly toast, she said. Something to lighten the mood. I had smiled, nodded, even raised my glass as she clinked her mimosa against mine and took the mic in front of 20 of my closest friends and coworkers. But what came out of her mouth after that wasn't funny. It was cruel and calculated. I should have known something was off earlier. The way she side-eyed my new dress like it was a fashion crime, the fake smile compliments, the way she whispered with Brianna and Jess at the corner table when I walked by. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was just nervous, that it was my big day, and everything would be fine. But I wasn't imagining anything. Emily, she said into the mic with a little giggle, is the kind of girl who thinks one trip to Sephora turns her into a beauty influencer. The crowd chuckled. Awkwardly. She's always been, how do I put this? Eager to be the center of attention. Remember her 16th birthday party when she made us all wear matching shirts with her face on them? Iconic. Laughter again. Louder this time. I laughed too. A small, dying thing that never made it past my throat. She went on, story after story, twisting my past into a punchline, making me sound needy, desperate, like some attention-starved child playing dress-up in grown-up clothes. I heard someone say, "Wow, she really said that?" And another whisper, "That's kinda mean." But no one stopped her. And I stood there, numb, smiling, humiliated, feeling like the wallpaper in my own celebration. When I finally escaped to the bathroom, the walls felt like they were pressing in. I clutched the sink, staring at my reflection under the two white lights. Who was that girl looking back at me? Weak. Broken. Ridiculous. A small knock at the door made me jump. It was Lucy, my coworker from the firm. You okay? I took a shaky breath and lied. Yeah. Just fixing my makeup. Okay. Well, we're about to do cake. Cake. How fitting. I waited a few more minutes, then splashed cold water on my face. My eyes were red. My heart was racing. But something inside me was changing. Shifting. It wasn't the humiliation that got me. It was the betrayal. Madison and I had been friends for 8 years. Since sophomore year of college. We'd been roommates. Shared secrets. Traveled together. She knew things about me no one else did. And she used that knowledge like a dagger. Why? What did I ever do to deserve this? When I walked back out, people tried not to look directly at me. They clapped half-heartedly as the waitstaff brought out the cake. I smiled through it. Posed for pictures. Thanked everyone for coming. Madison stood beside me like the queen of charm, draping an arm around my shoulder and leaning in like nothing had happened. I didn't flinch. I didn't pull away. Because I had already decided this wasn't going to end here. The next morning, I sat alone at a small cafe near my apartment in Ocean Beach, nursing a bitter black coffee and scrolling through the birthday photos Madison had tagged me in on Instagram. There it was. Caption: celebrating this drama queen the best way I know how, #birthdaybash, #too much fun. And the worst part? A video clip of the speech. She had posted it. She wanted everyone to see it. My jaw clenched as I read the comments. LOL savage. Madison is brutal, I love it. She really said what we were all thinking. I slammed my phone down and stared out the window, blinking back hot tears. I couldn't let this go. Not this time. Madison wasn't always like this. There was a time I truly believed she was the best friend I'd ever had. We met in sophomore year at UCLA. She had transferred from Oregon and ended up in my media theory class. She was confident, magnetic, the kind of girl people just gravitated toward. I was quieter, more observant, but she took a liking to me almost instantly. "You have good energy," she'd said the first time we talked, her eyes glinting like she knew some secret about me I didn't even know myself. We became inseparable. Brunch dates. Study nights. Weekend road trips to Big Sur. She called me I called her Mads. We shared everything, clothes, lip gloss, heartbreak stories. When I broke up with Darren, she slept in my bed that night just to make sure I didn't cry myself to sleep. But there were moments, tiny flickers, that I should have paid more attention to. The time she flirted with my crush at a bar and later said, "Relax, I was just helping you see he's not worth it." Or when she read aloud a private text I sent her about a job interview, right in front of a group of girls from our program, and laughed like it was no big deal. Madison just jokes like that. I used to say, "She's just being real." I was wrong. She wasn't being real. She was being cruel. That night after the party, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying every moment of her speech, like a looped nightmare. My phone buzzed a few times, texts from friends saying still had a great time, or she went too far lol, but it was all in fun. Madison's name lit up my screen around 1:13 a.m. Mads. You're not still upset, are you? Chill babe, it was just a roast. You looked hot AF BTW. Just a roast? I stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She thought she got away with it. She thought I'd laugh it off. No, Madison. Not this time. The first thing I did was call Ava. Ava was my childhood friend, now living in New York, but always just one FaceTime away. She didn't go to the party, but she knew Madison. And she never liked her. She's always been two-faced. Ava said as she slathered cream cheese on a bagel mid-call. You just didn't want to see it. I think I'm done pretending she's my friend. Ava leaned closer to the screen. Good. Now, what are you going to do about it? I smiled for the first time in days. I'm going to remind her that not everyone forgives and forgets. By Monday, I had a plan. No screaming. No crying. No dramatic confrontation. Just precision. Madison's weaknesses were her image, her pride, and her need for validation. She curated her life like an influencer. Perfect filters, constant attention, always in control of the narrative. But what if someone else took control? I started small. I posted a few candid photos from the party. No filters. Just her in mid-speech, face contorted, red wine stain on her teeth. The caption? Real friends don't make your birthday about themselves. The comments blew up. Wait, what happened? Spill the tea, sis. Oof, this is not a vibe. Then came the DMs. People who had been at the party started messaging me. One of them even sent me a video Madison had deleted from her story, one where she clearly called me an emotional mess just before her speech. I saved everything. I didn't respond to Madison's text. Not that night. Not the next morning. And not even when she sent a second message 2 days later that read, Mads. Okay, why are you being weird now? Don't make this a thing. I just watched as her curated little world started to shift under her. Watched how the attention she craved turned against her, slowly, then all at once. The post I made was doing more damage than I expected. My DM inbox was full of people with their own stories. And I realized this wasn't just about me. Madison had made a habit of humiliating people. It just never stuck. Until now. 3 days after the party, I walked into a midweek happy hour at Ember, the downtown rooftop bar where Madison and I usually held our unofficial catch-ups. She wasn't expecting me. Brianna and Jess were already there, sipping cocktails and scrolling their phones. When I slid into the booth beside them, both looked up, surprised. Hey, Brianna said, hesitant. Jess added, Didn't think you were coming. I didn't either. I replied, casually removing my sunglasses. But I figured, why not? Madison arrived a few minutes later, her energy high as always. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight ponytail, her sunglasses perched like a crown, her lips painted crimson. Look who decided to show, she said loudly, sliding into the seat across from me. Birthday girl back from the dead? She was smiling. Too wide. Too fake. I tilted my head. Still recovering from Eros. Her smile twitched slightly. Jess cleared her throat. That was intense, huh? I was joking. Madison laughed. People are so sensitive. It was a roast. Like Comedy Central style. You've seen those, right? I have. I said calmly. But the people getting roasted usually know they're the target. Madison waved a hand. Oh, please. You're acting like I exposed your bank account or something. It was all lighthearted. No, I replied, taking a sip of my drink. You exposed my vulnerabilities for applause. For the first time, her eyes flashed with something unfiltered. Annoyance. You're seriously still upset? I leaned forward. I'm not upset. I'm aware now. Silence. Brianna shifted uncomfortably. Jess stared at her drink. I smiled again, this time slow and deliberate. Anyway, I said, standing, just wanted to say hi. Enjoy your night. And with that, I left. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. But it was the first spark. Over the next week, I quietly began collecting information. I reached out to past friends, old roommates, former coworkers, and the stories they told? Shocking. A girl named Tara, who was publicly mocked by Madison at her engagement party for not fitting into her bridesmaid dress. Another girl, Lily, who left her job after Madison leaked screenshots of her Slack messages to the office group chat. And a third, Kelsey, who was invited to Madison's birthday dinner just to be made fun of over her recent breakup. Madison had even created a cocktail named the Dumped Diva. It was clear now. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern. A deeply rooted need to degrade others for a cheap laugh and a moment of power. And I wasn't going to let it slide anymore. I made a private group chat. Just 5 girls at first. Then 7. Then 12. I called it #Mads Unmasked. I laid it out honestly. No gossip. No malice. Just facts. Screenshots. Stories. And support. One by one, the girls joined in, adding their experiences, their pain, their rage. What Madison did to me, she'd done in different ways to all of them. Some had stayed silent for years. Some had even defended her before. But now they were done. That Saturday, I hosted a self-love brunch at my place. No Madison. Just women who'd once been her targets. We made waffles and mimosas, played chill music, and talked. Really talked. About boundaries. About healing. About friendship and trust. And somewhere between the laughter and the tears, I made a decision. It was time to make Madison feel the consequences of the world she had built. Time to remind her that karma doesn't knock. It kicks the door in. The first step was exposure. But not in a petty, scream on the street kind of way. I started by writing a detailed, anonymous blog post titled, "She was my best friend, until she made me a punchline." I told my story. Not just what happened at the party, but the why behind the pain. I didn't name her. I didn't need to. The people who mattered knew exactly who it was. I ended the post with, "There are people who turn their charm into a weapon, who learn your softness so they can mock it in public. These aren't friends. These are performers. And I refuse to be part of their audience anymore." The post was shared, then reshared. It landed on a local women's support group forum. From there, it spread. 3 days later, Madison texted me again. "Mads, what the hell? Did you write this?" I didn't respond. "Mads, this is getting out of hand. People are DMing me. WTF, Emily?" Still, I stayed quiet. Because what I was doing wasn't illegal. It wasn't slander. It was truth. And truth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. At work, people began to whisper. I could hear Madison's name floating through break rooms and hallways. Even her curated Instagram feed started to crack. Fewer likes. Less engagement. And then one night I saw it. She posted a story. Just a black screen with the words, "When your own friends turn against you, maybe it's time to start over." I smiled. But this wasn't over yet. Because Madison hadn't apologized. She hadn't changed. She was just playing the victim now. And that was the part one couldn't let slide. 1 week later, I received a DM from someone named Claire. She introduced herself as a reporter from a digital magazine called West Coast Women. They'd seen my anonymous post. "I'd love to feature your story," she said. "It's important, and it's resonating with a lot of people." I hesitated. Going public meant revealing my identity. It meant war. But it also meant finally standing up, not just for me, but for every girl who's ever laughed through tears at someone else's joke. I agreed. The interview was raw, emotional, honest. And when the article went live, the headline was simple: "The girl who got roasted and rose." It didn't take long for the dots to connect. Madison knew. Everyone knew. That night I got a call. Not a text. A call. Her name flashed across the screen. I let it ring out. Voicemail. Her voice, shaking now. "Emily, I don't know what you're trying to do, but this isn't fair. You're ruining my life over a joke. Please, just call me." I didn't. Not because I wanted to torture her, but because I needed her to sit with it, to finally feel what I felt. Alone, embarrassed, powerless. The next morning, Madison deactivated her Instagram. And for the first time in 8 years, the silence between us felt like peace. I thought that would be the end of it. That once Madison disappeared off social media, once the whispers stopped echoing through my inbox, I could finally move on. But healing isn't linear. And Madison? She wasn't finished. Not even close. It started 2 weeks later. I was sitting at my desk at the interior design studio where I worked, sipping my afternoon matcha and editing a client's layout, when my coworker Jasmine poked her head in. "Hey," she said, cautious. "There's someone at reception asking for you." I frowned. "A client?" "No, I think it's a personal visit." The unease in her voice made me set my tablet down. I walked down the glass hallway to the reception area, heels clicking on the polished floor, and stopped dead. Sitting on the couch, legs crossed, phone in hand, was Madison, wearing sunglasses indoors, as if this was just another Sunday brunch. I blinked. "What are you doing here?" She looked up, slow, controlled. "I figured you wouldn't answer my calls. So here I am." "You're at my job." Her smile was strained. "Yeah, I know. But you've made it clear I'm not welcome in your life otherwise." I motioned for her to follow me into the empty conference room, then shut the door behind us. "Say what you need to say," I said coldly. Madison stood up, finally removing her sunglasses. And for the first time, I saw it. The cracks. No makeup. Under-eye circles. Chewed-up fingernails. Her once perfectly curated image was unraveling. "I just want to talk," she said. "No cameras. No drama. Just Emily and Madison. Like before." "There is no before," I said flatly. "You humiliated me. Repeatedly. And you did it under the mask of friendship." "I didn't mean to," she snapped. "God, you're acting like I orchestrated this evil plot. Didn't you?" Her face tightened. I waited. Then finally, she said the words. "I was jealous." Silence. "What?" Madison's eyes brimmed with something I wasn't prepared for. Vulnerability. "You had everything, the real friends. The job you love. That smile everyone believed. I felt like I was performing all the time. And no one ever saw me. They only saw you." My breath caught. This wasn't what I expected. Not anger. Not an apology. But envy? "Is that why you attacked me in front of everyone?" Madison looked down. "I thought if I could control the narrative, if I could make people laugh at you, then maybe I wouldn't feel like the joke anymore." It hit me like ice water. Madison hadn't been trying to destroy me. She'd been trying to be me. I walked out of the conference room shaken. Not because I forgave her. Not because I pitied her. But because the truth? It was more complicated than I ever wanted it to be. What if Madison wasn't just a mean girl? What if she was broken, too? That night, I went home and opened my laptop. I scrolled through the blog post again, rereading the comments. Dozens, no, hundreds, of women sharing similar stories. Some had been bullied by best friends. Others had lived through workplace humiliation, family betrayals, public takedowns. And the common thread in all of them? Pain masked as power. I clicked over to my DMs. And there, buried beneath unread requests, was a message from someone named Danielle Harmon. I almost deleted it until I recognized the name. Danielle had been Madison's roommate in college. The one Madison claimed just ghosted one day. Her message simply read, "I just read your post. There's something I think you need to know. Can we talk?" My fingers hovered over the keys. Then typed, "Yes. Call me." Danielle's voice was quiet, deliberate. "I never ghosted Madison," she said. "She tells people that, but it's a lie." I was sitting on my bed, phone cradled to my ear, a knot in my stomach. "She got me kicked out of our sorority," Danielle continued. "She told the house president I'd been stealing from the donation jar. I hadn't. But she had text proof I couldn't explain." "What kind of proof?" "She sent screenshots of a text thread that looked like it was from my number. But I never wrote those texts. I think she used a fake number generator. Or photoshopped it." My mouth went dry. This was deeper than sarcasm at a party. This was sabotage. But why would she do that? Danielle's voice broke. "Because I was dating her ex. And I didn't know." I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, rewinding every interaction with Madison over the last 8 years. How many things had she twisted? How many people had she quietly burned behind closed doors while smiling in selfies with them? And worse, had I helped her do it? All those times I stayed quiet, laughed off the shade, made excuses for her edgy humor. I was complicit in my own silence. The next morning, I met with Claire, the journalist. We sat outside a coffee shop in Little Italy, sunlight warming our shoulders, both of us holding lavender lattes. "I think there's more to this," I told her. Claire leaned in. "More than the roast?" I nodded. "I think Madison's history of public humiliation goes back years. I think there are more victims. And I think it's time someone connects the dots." Claire's eyes lit up. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I want to go deeper. Not just my story. Everyone's." What started as a blog post turned into a feature investigation. Claire titled it, "Behind the Curtain, The Cost of a Funny Friend." We interviewed 7 women in total, all with similar stories. Manipulation, lies, betrayal masked as humor, and the consistent thread through all of them, Madison Hart. When the piece went live, it exploded. Not just on social media, but in real-world circles, college campuses, workplaces, even news sites. Claire had done her research. She cited sources, cross-referenced receipts. Madison wasn't named directly, but the breadcrumbs were unmistakable. And this time, people weren't laughing. They were listening. I didn't hear from Madison again, but I heard about her. Someone mentioned she'd left town, deleted her socials again, even quit her job. I should have felt victorious, but what I felt was something else. Not sadness, not joy, just release. Like I had finally cut the last thread tying me to that version of myself, the one who let someone else define her worth. A week later, I was walking through Balboa Park when I got a message from Claire. It simply said, "You started something bigger than you think." And I smiled, because maybe, just maybe, I was no longer the punchline. I was the plot twist. They say when the storm is over, you pick up the pieces. But sometimes you realize the storm was the cleansing. After the article went live, my inbox became a second world, alive with stories, voices, and strangers reaching out from the shadows. People I'd never met thanking me, not just for speaking out, but for giving them permission to feel angry, betrayed, vindicated. One message, in particular, froze my breath. It read, "Emily, I've been silent for years. Madison did the same thing to my sister in high school. She spiraled so badly, she dropped out mid-year. Thank you for breaking the cycle." It had a name attached, Lena Hart, Madison's cousin. I called Claire immediately. "We need to talk to her," I said. "Lena." Claire was ahead of me. She reached out to me too. "She's willing." Within 2 days, we were sitting across from Lena in a sun-drenched cafe in Pacific Beach. She was soft-spoken, wary, clutching a ring on her middle finger and spinning it nervously. "I wasn't surprised when I saw Madison's name in your piece," she admitted. "What surprised me was how long it's gone on." "She's done this before?" I asked. Lena nodded. "Since middle school. Either orbit her or get burned by her. Then, leaning forward, she whispered, "But you don't know the half of it." Claire and I exchanged a glance. Lena continued. She wasn't just cruel. She was strategic. She kept notebooks, literal lists, of people she wanted to take down. My blood ran cold. Are you saying she planned her humiliations? Yes. It was like a game. She'd write down their insecurities, things she overheard, then wait for the right moment to say it publicly, like at parties or in group chats. Claire leaned in, stunned. Did you ever see these notebooks? I saw one. Once. I told her it freaked me out, and she laughed it off. Called it her black comedy binder. Said everyone should have one. And in that moment it clicked. Madison's cruelty had never been accidental. It was premeditated. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my balcony, legs curled under me, staring at the ocean, trying to reconcile the girl I once called my best friend with this monster of manipulation. The one who turned every party into a trap, every compliment into a setup, every smile into bait. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it. Let it ring once. Twice. 3 times. Then answered. Hello. A pause. Then, you win. Madison. Her voice was raw. Flat. Empty. I don't want to play anymore, she said. I said nothing. What do you want from me? She continued. Apologies? Closure? Blood? I wanted you to stop pretending. I never pretended. Yes, you did. You pretended to be my friend. Pretended it was all in good fun. Pretended you weren't tearing people apart one laugh at a time. Silence. Then a whisper. I thought it made me powerful. I swallowed hard. It made you a coward. The next morning, Claire forwarded me an email from Madison's lawyer. A cease and desist. They claimed defamation, even though her name was never used. We met with Claire's editor and their legal counsel, and after reviewing all statements, they stood by the story. She won't win in court, the lawyer assured me. She's bluffing. But still, the anxiety returned like a shadow under the door. Madison wasn't just humiliated. She was cornered. And people like her don't go down quietly. Sure enough, a week later, I got an email from my employer's HR department. Subject: anonymous complaint. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a claim that I was weaponizing my platform to harass others and that my behavior outside of work may damage the company's public image. My heart dropped. Madison was trying to take me down professionally. I marched straight into my manager's office, holding the printout. I'm being targeted, I said. And I can prove it. She looked up, calm. We know. What? She handed me her own copy of the complaint. We already flagged it. The language was erratic, and it referenced details no one here knew about. She smiled gently. Emily, we support you. Keep doing what you're doing. I wanted to cry. Instead, I exhaled for the first time in days. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I was going to end this, not by destroying Madison, but by reclaiming my entire voice. I pitched a podcast series. 6 episodes. Each one focusing on a different story of friendship betrayals and the psychology behind public humiliation. Claire offered to co-host. We called it The Roast Effect. The tagline? What happens when jokes stop being funny and start being weapons? Within 2 weeks of release, we hit the Apple Podcasts Top 50. People were hungry for the truth behind the smiles. Episode 3 featured Danielle's story. Episode 4, Lena's. And in Episode 5, I told mine, start to finish. Birthday candles, wine glasses, the mic drop moment, every laugh, every whisper, every cut. By the time Episode 6 aired, a national talk show had invited us to speak. I almost said no. But then I thought about 16-year-old me, standing at that birthday table, cheeks burning, laughter echoing in her skull. She deserved to be heard. So I went. I wore a crimson pantsuit and looked into the camera like it was a mirror. And I said, I don't hate Madison. I hate what she represents. A culture where we laugh at pain and call it strength, where we reward cruelty with popularity, where silence equals survival. I'm done being silent. And the studio fell silent too. Then applause. Real applause. Not the kind that hides knives, but the kind that sews wounds. The next day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. You've made your point. I lost everything. Are you happy now?
I stared at it for a long time.
Then turned it over. On the back was a Polaroid. A birthday photo. That party. Me mid-laugh. Madison beside me. Frozen in time.
So much has changed.
But the truth? I'm still laughing. Just not at myself anymore. Healing is not a straight line. Some days, I wake up and feel like a conqueror, like I stood before the monster and didn't flinch. Other days, I stare at the mirror and ask myself, did I go too far? But healing isn't about choosing between those voices. It's about letting them both exist and walking forward anyway. After the podcast blew up, life changed rapidly. I started getting emails from universities, nonprofits, even therapy centers. They wanted to use our episodes in their curriculum. High school counselors played them during group sessions. One middle school teacher told me, after hearing your story, 3 girls open up about being bullied by their own friend group. You probably saved them. I cried when I read that. Not because I felt proud, but because I remembered being one of those girls. Paralyzed.
Confused.
Silenced by fake friendship.
And now?
I was helping break that silence. Claire and I were invited to speak at a youth summit in Los Angeles. Hundreds of students. Panels. Media coverage. At first, I felt nervous walking into a room full of teens. Would they roll their eyes? Call me dramatic? Say, okay, boomer, even though I was barely 28? But when I stepped on stage, something unexpected happened. They listened. Every single one of them. Eyes wide. Faces alert. Some with tears. Some nodding. Some looking scared because they realized they were in a Madison-type friendship. And when we finished our talk, they stood. A standing ovation from kids who finally saw themselves. Later that evening, we held a meet and greet. One girl came up, trembling. She said, my best friend laughs at me in front of people, but then hugs me after. I took her hands and said softly, that's not friendship. That's fear disguised as love. She hugged me. She was only 14. I knew that pain too well. But I also knew she wouldn't have to carry it alone anymore. Back in San Diego, I tried to return to normal life. Writing. Coffee walks. Phone calls with my mom. But every now and then, someone would recognize me on the street. You're the girl from the roast effect, right? And I'd nod. Smile. One day, I stopped at a bookstore and saw it. A small paperback on the shelf. The Mean Girl Myth. Undoing the Lies We Believed. And beneath the title, Emily Carter. I froze. It wasn't supposed to be published until next month. The publisher had fast-tracked it after the podcast's success. I picked it up, flipped to the last page. My author bio read, Emily Carter is a writer, advocate, and accidental whistleblower. She lives in San Diego with her dog Whiskey and a fierce commitment to speaking uncomfortable truths. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was true. Then came something I didn't expect. A text. From Madison. This time, not a blocked number. Not anonymous. Just a simple message. Can we meet? I stared at it for a full hour, and then typed, why? Her reply came fast. Because I need to tell you something. In person. Not to fix it. Just to finish it. We met at a public park. Neutral territory. She looked tired. Thinner. Hair unkempt. Hoodie oversized. But her eyes, they weren't cold anymore. They were haunted. Thanks for coming, she said, sitting across from me on the wooden bench. I stayed quiet. She took a shaky breath. I lost everything, she whispered.
My job.
My friends. My reputation. Even my parents pulled away. They said I embarrassed the family. I nodded slowly. And I deserve it, she said. That's the truth. I blinked. I was cruel.
Not just to you.
To dozens of people. And I did it because I was empty inside. If I could make someone else feel small, then for a second, I felt big. She looked up. But you held up a mirror. And I hated what I saw. Still do.
I didn't cry.
I didn't scream. I just said, "What do you want from me now?" She shrugged. Not forgiveness. I don't even forgive myself. Then why are we here? She reached into her bag and handed me something. A binder.
Old.
Beat up. Scribbled on. Across the front, black comedy binder. I gasped. She nodded. The original. I kept it all these years. Like a trophy. I opened it. Lists. Names. Personal fears. Inside jokes turned into weapons. Even mine. Emily, scared of public speaking. Feels dumb about literature. Secretly insecure about her laugh. I closed it and looked at her.
I don't want this, I said.
But maybe someone else does, she whispered. Later that week, I mailed the binder to Lena. With a note. Use it however you need. You deserve to be the last one who ever reads it. She later told me she burned it in her backyard. Not out of rage, but as a ritual of closure. The cycle ended there. Ashes in the wind. 1 month later, I stood on a different stage. This time, it wasn't about exposure. It was about healing. The city held a community panel on emotional abuse and female friendships. I was the closing speaker. I walked up, looked at the crowd, then said, "We are told that friends are forever, that girls are always sweet, that mean behavior is a phase. But what they never tell us is that betrayal wears a smile, that harm doesn't always come from enemies, and that sometimes your best friend becomes your deepest wound, but also your greatest teacher."
Pause.
Then, because from that pain you rise. Applause. Now I live differently. I keep my circles small. I guard my peace like it's gold. I still write, but only things that feel true. And every year on my birthday, I light a candle for the girl I used to be. Not because I miss her, but because she survived. And sometimes, when I walk the shoreline near my apartment, I imagine the waves are whispers. Not from ghosts of the past, but from every woman who is told, "You're too sensitive. It was just a joke. Get over it." And I whisper back, "I remember. And I'm here. Because I am. Still standing. Still speaking.
Still me.